At the beginning of the course, we're going to be refreshing some of the foundations for data science that we'll be using. This is both from the statistics side and also from the programming side. Let's begin with the programming side and Python. There are many different ways you can interact with Python. You can use an IDE, an integrated development environment like IDLE or Eclipse. You can use a simple command line plus an editor of your choice like Vim or Emacs. Or you can use something like Jupyter Notebooks. Any way that you do it is fine by me. I, however, in giving examples, will use the basic command line. This is a little bit simpler and doesn't require the additional overhead of the other frameworks that I've talked about. So when I want to use Python 3, I go to my computer and I type Python 3 at the command line here. And so Python then starts up and it shows me exactly what Python version I'm using. In this case, it's 3.5.2. If you ask for help and you don't list the version of Python that you're running, that's something that you should do. And by giving the version of Python that you're using, we can help solve some of the problems that may come up in the course of this course. You can then type in commands that you want Python to run. So for example, if we just type in the expression 3 plus 2, that will execute it and then return the value 5, and that shows up right here. Because it's a programming language and not just a calculator, we can also assign values to variables. And so here we're creating a variable called a, and we're assigning the number 5 to that variable. Now a takes on the value of 5, and then if we do a times 5, that now gives us 5 times 5 because a from before was defined as 5. You can also type all of your commands into a file and then run that file. We'll be doing plenty of that in this course, but to get things started, it's easier often just to play around with the command lines, try things out, and see if they work or if they don't. You can also create functions in Python. We'll be talking more about this later. To create a function, you use the command def, which is short for define, and then you give the name of the function. In this case, we're calling the function logistic. We'll see a lot of the logistic function in this course, but this is a way to get you acquainted with the logistic function a little bit earlier. The logistic function takes one argument, and we call that argument x. We have defined now a function called logistic that takes one argument, and that argument is called x. Now in the body of the program, we're going to use that argument to do some computations. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take whatever value gets passed into the logistic function and pass it into another function called exp. And then we're going to divide the number 1.0 by whatever 1 plus the negative exp of the argument of the function was. So I haven't told you what the exponential function is, and I also haven't told the program what the exponential function is. So if I type this in, and I try to run the logistic function on the input 3, it will generate an error. You'll be seeing lots of errors in this class, and one of the things you'll figure out is how to understand what these errors mean, and how to ask for help when you get these errors. And so here, you see a relatively straightforward error that's telling you, hey, you haven't told me what the exponential function is. Hopefully, even though I haven't told you what the exponential function is, you will remember from your pre-calculus class that the exponential function is a function that looks something like this. And we can get that function from Python. And so the way that we can do that is we can type in from math import exp. If we type that command into Python, it will look in a library called math and try to find a function called exp. Thankfully that exists, and now it will have this standard mathematical function, and you can use it in functions like the logistic function. And so after we have done that, we can now type in various values into the logistic function and then get an answer. And so you can see that the logistic function takes very negative numbers and then returns a small number near 0, and for very large numbers, it returns a number close to 1. And if you give it the value 0, the logistic function returns 0.5. We'll be seeing the logistic function again, but the goal of today was to just get you introduced to Python, and hopefully you can try these things out on your own computer with Python installed, and if you can, then great, we'll be able to move on, but if not, work on getting Python installed so that you can play around with these kinds of functions before moving on.